voice every day to the world and to your heart. Open up your eyes and let your spirit start. Say yes to the dreams you hold inside. Let your soul be your guide.
Thank you for joining us today for another episode of Wednesday Wisdom. Today, we are joined by the amazing Brianne Joseph. She is a senior loan officer at Nexa Mortgage. Bree, thank you so much for joining us today, and we certainly cannot wait to hear a little bit of your wisdom shared with all of us. So to kick it off, we'd like to start with, in our lives, we learn lessons every single day. We hear things, we read things, we're part of our communities, and we're picking up little lessons and tidbits of wisdom in that day-to-day. So, Bree, we'd love for you to share with us, what is a piece of wisdom or lesson or something you learned that you would like to share because it really became part of your life?
That's a great question. I've learned a lot of lessons. I've definitely learned a lot, recently, even just being in this market, right? In this industry.
Oh, yeah.
Recently, it's been a lot of ups and a lot of downs. People would say on paper more downs than ups, right? But honestly, my biggest lesson in the past, I would say 2 years that has been most impactful my whole life is to really listen to your inner voice. And I know that a lot of people would say like, oh, listen to your gut or listen to your inner voice. But I mean, really, really dig deep and listen to it, because I think that the efficiency that you'll find in all other aspects of your life, once you start listening to truly your inner voice, will take off, right? Money will come easier or maybe more quickly. You're going to be less attached to other people's decisions, right? If they tell you no, or they're not getting back to you, or you're really wanting that deal, right? That's very desperate energy. And you act out of desperation or wanting or needing when you're uncertain in who you are, right? That's when you do it. And I didn't realize that. I was hustling and I was grinding and I was fighting for the deal and I was going, because that's what I was supposed to do. That's what I was taught to do.
That's society. Yep.
That's what my competitors do, right? And I didn't understand why it didn't feel fulfilling, and I didn't understand why I was frustrated, right? Or why I would take it personally if I thought I had someone's commitment and then they ghosted me or whatever. And once I started listening to my inner voice, I really started to close loops on different other lessons in my life, right? Like to be compassionate and kind of soft with yourself and almost get to know yourself. That was my key. And in fact, I came from an extremely, I'm not going to name any names, you can do all your research you want. I came from an extremely high producing team.
Okay.
And we always were recognized as the top, top 1% this and the sales rallies and all that. And I was a production partner on that team. And I was completely depleted because, well, one, it wasn't my team, right? So if you're going to step into something, make sure that you have ownership in it. But two, I was avoiding what I knew deep down to be right? And when I say that, I mean that centeredness in myself. Now, if a deal walks away, okay, a deal walks away.
It wasn't meant for me.
It wasn't
right. It wasn't meant for me. The next one will be for me.
Yeah, right. And a lot of people will say that, right? And then it'll eat them up all night. The next day they'll be talking about it, and now, and I was that was me. And now it's just like, I feel so centered and good and kind of like with my intentions that, okay, that just wasn't meant to be. So I say that because I think that listening to your inner voice will expedite you making the decisions that you already know that you need to be making to get into alignment with your purpose.
But right? How do you get there, Brie? I mean, listen, everything you say, me and you are like on the same wavelength, right? Like me and you are aligned. I get it. But that when you have that negative thought going through your brain, you use the word desperation. Listen, this market in the last couple of years, there's a lot of people that are in desperation mode, fear. Yeah. They're in fear, right? And fear is a liar. Fear puts these thoughts in our brain. Fear allows us to not see things clearly. So what journey did you go through to be able to get to where you were listening to that inner voice and not that fear factor?
I still struggle with it. And honestly, people will call it like the dark soul of the night. I mean, I blew up my whole life. I quit the team that I was on. Because I knew, some things, of course, you can fix, right? I'm not saying walk away from conflict. That would be ridiculous. Life is conflict, right? Like it's figuring it out. But when you sacrifice who you are for the betterment of your bank account or the betterment of what you think you're supposed to be doing, when you sacrifice who you are, you're waking up in the middle of the night with anxiety. Right? Your Sunday scaries are quadrupled, right? That feeling that we've all had, especially in high pressure sales, of their decision is going to make your day. Are you serious? I lived that life for years, 7-8 years in this industry. And we were crushing it, right? It doesn't matter. People think, if I was just a high producer, it wouldn't bother me. That's not true. Nope. Let me tell you very, 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 very clearly, that's absolutely not true. You just have more people to piss you off, right? And now that I stepped away, I have less people to piss me off. But guess what? No one pisses me off because everything now is in my control. I choose who I work with. I choose how I work. Now, I'm going to be really transparent, right? Everyone can look up mortgage people's numbers. You look up my numbers, they're pretty down. My life is pretty up. So I say all that to say, take the step back, regroup, get to know yourself, get to know what makes sense for you. And I think that you'll be surprised because when you take away all that stress and the pull and the push and the tug, right? When you're dealing with resistance, you spend more money, you spend more energy, you don't sleep as well, you don't eat as well. All these things, you're not even thinking about it. I wasn't thinking about it, right? But it was more about getting quiet and really doing, really deep work, like heavy shadow work, right? I was talking to myself every day and saying, okay, what went well today? What didn't go as well as I would have hoped? And then how can I forgive myself for that?
Yeah.
Every single day for months. Because what I realized is when I left that toxic environment and I quote unquote blew up my life and I was kind of like in a depressed haze, all that anger or frustration or desperation or these things that we feel in such a high pressure environment, people aren't realizing there's millions, hundreds of thousands of dollars on the line, right? There's multiple people involved in a home purchase transaction. There's a ton of deadlines. There's so much that goes on behind the scenes. And when I realized that, like, one, I'm only a person and things, will go awry sometimes or things won't. But when you are in line with yourself and you're very intentional when you talk to partners that you work with, and when you connect with clients or leads or whatever it might be, just like you do, and anyone else that may listen to this, you're attracted to authenticity. Yep. You're attracted to the truth, right? Now, here's what I'll say. There's a lot of mortgage loan officers out there, loan originators, that are not attracted to the truth, right? They're not attracted to the authenticity. They are competing. There is sales. There's all these things. And so if you're able to kind of step away from that, you're going to attract other truth seekers. What does that mean? It means your life's going to be a lot less stressful, right? Now, I'm not going to worry personally about like money or production numbers and things like that. And no, I don't have some secret bank account that's just flooding and I just don't care. But what I did is I prioritized my sanity, my mental health, my nervous system over a transaction. Yeah. And since I've been doing that now about a year and a half, everything, and I mean everything, feels a lot better. Now, I've realized that mortgage is not 100% of my time anymore, right? I also want to coach women. I want to coach women because what I want me from 2 years ago to talk to me from today and go, oh my gosh, there's an out, right? We are being pulled and pushed, and we're invited to get into that energy. So we do, and then we think that that's what life is, right? And life is a feeling, and it goes so quickly. And so, yeah, I think that coming back to your question, that wisdom piece is coming to yourself. And I truly mean that. I don't mean that as like, oh, the unbecoming and go find yourself and all these things that you hear. I mean, be quiet with yourself every single day. Because if you have a voice that's pulling you and nagging at you or waking you up in the middle of the night, something needs to change. And it's so scary to think, oh my gosh, you mean walking away from making hundreds of thousands of dollars? What do you mean? No, I'm not doing that, right? I did that dance for a few years. And then I walked away. And guess what? Those few $100,000 aren't here yet. And I'm great. I'm fine, right? I'm happy. I'm calm. So
I love that you're sharing that. I mean, listen, when someone says, I attract who I want to do business with, and I recognize that, and I choose the people that I do business with. That is the ultimate goal of anyone in business, right? That's where anyone wants to get, right? Because we all know when we're starting out in our careers, we can't be picky or choosy, right? We kind of just have to take anyone that comes along, and a lot of times,
not only do you take them, you grab onto them.
You do.
Yeah, get them in your CRM. You're going to follow up 3 times a week. Apply or die. Make a decision. Yes or no. The fastest way. And now, because I equated a lead count, which is what all large kind of team production, especially in a masculine, industry.
Yeah.
You're equating lead count, right? It's all conversion. How many leads do I need to how many calls, how many pre-approvals, how many deals, how many of those are going to actually go under contract? Blah, 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 blah.
Yep.
All useful information. The most useful information is what your body is telling you. Right. And we're not taught that, right? In any way, and of course not in school or anything like that, but even jumping into this industry. So, any newbies or anything like that, obviously in mortgage, but across, be careful with what you're going to choose to do. And if it is going to be something like this, which is so amazing, right? Like this is like to be able to be a part of something so amazing. However, stay authentic and stay true, right? Because also when someone comes to me that doesn't make enough money and I could approve them for way out of their means, I'm not going to do it. But that's okay. Someone else will. I'm not saying that everyone should buy a house. See, I'm a little bit different than other mortgage loan originators. I'm not saying buy a house, buy a house, buy a house. Everyone should buy a house. I'm saying let's slow down. Let's figure it out. Let's come up. Let me align with your goals here.
Correct.
Right. So I don't really have a dog in the fight. I don't really care if you buy in a month or you buy in 10 years or you don't buy at all.
Right.
What I care about is being honest and being truthful and having, when you speak to me, I'm being honest and truthful. Therefore, you trust me. Yeah. And then your friends are going to trust me and your family's going to trust me. That's right. I'm not going to keep cold calling agents. I'm not going to beg, a Zillow lead to buy a house that they can't afford. I'm not going to do it. And so I'm hopeful and I have enough faith that there's plenty of clients out there that feel kind of that ick of being sold, right? They kind of feel that, whoa, I thought I was comfortable with 3,000, but now the originator's showing me 4,000. Now this feels icky, right?
That's correct. Now they're the one that's up all night because they have a knot in their stomach saying, oh, I can't have another child because we can't afford to have another child because I have a mortgage payment that's $4,000 a month,
100%.
right?
Yeah. So, I would say, right, getting this really in touch with yourself, you're going to see a lot more morality fall onto you. And when that does, you need to honor it, right? When you're sleeping at night, you need to honor your morality. So what I will say is that I think that there's a lot of people in this business and in all businesses, right? A lot of corporations and things where they just haven't check in with themselves, right? So they're not losing us. It's just the game. It's just how it goes. And for me, it just became really personal, right? These are people in my community. These are people, that go.
Well, you're leading them. They trust you as an advisor. I mean, you're leading them. So there is a moral obligation that, and I always equate our industry similar to, medical field, meaning that if my parents or my child was sick, I would want the best expert, the best advisor, the one that knows the latest and greatest of all medical possibility, right? It's the same thing when someone is looking to buy a house. It's scary.
Yeah.
It's frightening.
It's like, decision.
Yes, I want to make sure that I have the person that's going to take all of this into consideration, right? Not just even today. What is the plan, right? Is this young couple looking to continue to add on to their family? Are they looking to stay at their jobs? Do they have aspirations of going self-employed down the road or whatever, right? Whatever that situation is, it's not just about that moment in time, right? Because we have an obligation to make sure that we're being that advisor to that. Yeah. So it is a lot of that.
If you take it seriously, right? Take it seriously, then you better bet that your gut, your morals, all that intuition, it's going to wake you up in the middle of the night if you're not in line, right? And then if you don't take it seriously, like time's up eventually, right? We're seeing a ton of people, leave the industry. We're seeing, I'll say, I was surrounded by a lot of professionals who I thought they were all pretty stand-up beings, right? Like they're all great. They're all successful, high producers. In June, late June, early July of 2022.
Oh, yeah. I remember that.
Overnight, right? And everybody's pipeline shrunk. Well, then you really start to get to know someone. Then you start to see who are people, right? Do people come together and lift each other up, or do people, trash on each other?
Well, adversity is always where you'll see the truth.
Yeah. So that was my big thing. It's just like, it took me a while to place it, First it was like, oh, it's just anxiety, or I'm a mom, I'm busy, or I didn't get enough sleep, or blah, blah. And then when you really start listening to yourself, you're like, you can really figure out where you're at compared to where you should be, just on your purpose. You don't have to have it all figured out, but you do know what feels true and what feels in line. And sometimes it takes a while to get there because we're just not used to even operating that way.
So, Bri, I have a question of course, obviously you and I are both women, right? So we speak a lot about, women's intuition and our gut instinct and I mean, I certainly am relating to everything that you're saying. Do you think men have this same type of feeling? I mean, I'm curious what your opinion is. And of course, we know we certainly work with lots and lots of wonderful gentlemen in our industry. What are your thoughts of what you see? Do you think there is a difference?
Yeah, that's a great question. I don't know. What I do know is that men and women are different. We are different human beings. I do think that women can certainly be like in our more masculine, right? Once you get into like corporate sales, things like that, it just is the society and the environment that they're put in. And I think that, men can be, certainly like in more of a feminine caretaking role. I also think that with this kind of, when I think big corporate, when I think big sales, when I think big operations, I think that we are taught at a really, really young age how we're kind of supposed to operate right in this way.
Yep.
And for men, I do kind of feel like, are you successful in their own minds, right? Are they successful if A does not lead to Z, right? If I'm going to get a lead that's not going to lead to a close, then what's the point?
What's the point? Yeah.
So I don't think, for instance, that a man is like, oh, this feels like kind of an aggressive, feisty industry. It makes sense that I'm there. I think that it's just so integrated for so long that it's like, it kind of almost has to complete, like A to Z, right? Like rational, like a lead to close. Whereas women are more, I would say, probably more ebb and flow with it. So really what I would say with like a guy in this industry is it almost feels like a different switch is turned on. And I've seen this with women too, right? I mean, and really what I've seen too with women sometimes is it almost takes me back to kind of that junior high feeling where it's like, and I think that really successful women act out of this, you know, obviously unintentionally, but it's like we're surviving, right? Like we have to outdo. So I don't even know if I'm answering your question. I don't think that there's any real thought that goes into it between men and women. I think that it is kind of a construct that we're taught to kind of fit into. And again, I mean, I did this for 7 years. I had 3 small children. You know, we had a house, we had a business, we had all these other things. It's like, it just kind of turns automatic, right? So I do think that kind of that losing the sense of ourselves is so common.
I agree.
Across anyone.
I think it's human almost in our, everything is just so fast and so on all the time now, right? There's not a lot of shut off. Like it is on all the time.
Instant replies, very flashy, right?
Yes.
You know, I'll see originators post like their fancy cars on social media, right? That equates to money, which equates to success. The issue that I have, which is where I was very focused oriented with like numbers, like, okay, well, I want amount of million in my account for when I retire, because no matter what, I'm not going to grow up the way that my kids won't grow up the way I grew up, all these things. But I realized the lack of presence that I had in my own life when I was tuned into something that's actually not important at all.
Correct.
So, you know, and so I don't know if that's more of a woman thing too, is like that presence, right? That real presence. So, you know, it might come a little bit easier for us to get back to ourselves. And it might be harder for men to like, there's, I'm sure, stigma attached. I couldn't imagine if my old boss was like, okay, guys, we're going to start things a little bit differently because I really went inward this weekend. And, you know,
I can't see it. I honestly like, couldn't imagine it.
Yeah. However, I would say that even since I've made these choices in my own personal life, other people have come up to me and be like, what are you doing differently? Like,
I love that.
Calm. You seem so relaxed. How are you doing this? Right? I've had people come and join Nexa from other places because they're like, oh, this makes sense. Whatever you're doing makes sense, right? And I'm not even really producing, right? Like that's the whole.
But they're seeing it like a lifestyle. You know, like it's all encompassing. It's not just the numbers, right? It's also
exactly. Not to mention, like, of course, there's still business out there, even in the jail market. Of course there is. Of course. But I think that that's where people get so caught up. It's like, oh, I'll lose myself for the numbers, right? Whereas I was able to switch that, thank God. And now it's like, oh, I'm not willing to lose myself ever again. So the numbers will all figure themselves out.
And it always does, Bree. You went through enlightening, right? You were enlightened, and now you have that awareness. Once you have that awareness, you're never going to unsee that awareness, right?
Yeah, so I don't have anything to be intimidated about because I see it. I see everything for what
that's right. You see it clear, and that seeing clear will go along with as markets change and markets shift. You know, things don't stay there forever. All right, Bree, thank you so much for joining us. Thank you so much for sharing your wisdom. For Bree, I know you mentioned you do some coaching. I know you're at Nexa. Is there anything you'd like to share with our audience of how people can connect to you, learn more about you, get with you of anything that they may have questions? Would you like to share any of that?
Yeah, certainly my email. Are you able to share any of our contact information?
Yeah.
Okay. So certainly email. I'm actually working on getting a more of a presence. I want to be really intentional on social media, not necessarily so if anyone reaches out to me via email, BeJoseph@Nexa Mortgage, I will send you my handles. But the only thing that I would say that I would want to share is if there's one thing that I would ever want to do in life, right, is to help people kind of step into their purpose and take their power back. And so that whole getting to know yourself piece, right, and coming to kind of terms with the past, what you could have done differently, all these things, and really applying that kind of forgiveness just internally. has really, really helped. And I just want to be a light to other people struggling with that, because it's not an easy world to operate in.
It is
and
not.
the more that I've gone through it, the more that I've gotten to know, women that have experienced the same thing. So we're not alone, right?
No. And you want to be a guide now that you
really, really
understand it.
Yeah.
I love that. Well, Bree, thank you for sharing your light with all of us, and we wish you all the best always.
Yeah, thank you so much. This was so fun.